All right, hi class, it's Miss Nicholas. I know I'm not here in person, but you have digital Miss Nick teaching you a little bit more about fractions so we don't fall behind. So, same as if I'm in class. Whatever I do on my paper, you're doing on yours. And we're going to pay super close attention because after we finish our lesson, there will be questions about what we just learned. So follow along with me. If your sub feels the need, they can pause the video if you need more time to copy things down, and then press play if you are ready to keep going. And if there's anything you don't understand, feel free to ask to rewind it and check it out a little bit later. All right? All right, so let's get started. So today we are working on continuing our fractions. We've been working on mixed numbers and improper fractions. So first let's review a mixed number. A mixed number is mixed with what? Good answer. A mixed number is mixed with whole numbers and fractions. Now, you don't have to write this down if you already have it in your notes, but if you haven't written it down yet, I would copy this right now if I were you. So an example of our mixed number is going to be 2 3/4. It's a mix of whole numbers and fractions. Now, the other type of fraction we've learned about is improper. Now, it's breaking a little bit of the rules, so that's why we call it improper. An improper fraction, by definition, has what? Who can raise their hand and tell me? Good answer. An improper fraction has a bigger numerator, so that means it's the number on the top, and a smaller denominator. Now, the major key for our improper fractions is to remember that an improper fraction means that our amount is more than one whole. So I'll have your sub pause this so that you can copy this down. When you're all done copying it down, go ahead and press play and we'll continue. All right, so now we're continuing. So we've reviewed our mixed numbers and our improper fractions. Now what we're going to do today is we're going to learn how to add and subtract those mixed numbers and improper fractions. But before we do that, we have to make sure we haven't forgotten how to convert them. So let's say I give you the improper fraction 25/4. Well, if I want to make that into a mixed number, I can do one of two things. So I could either divide 25 by 4 and see what my remainder is, or I can decompose it. If I'm decomposing it, I'm going to pull out my whole fraction first. Who can tell me what a whole fraction is? A fraction that represents one whole. So it has a number on the top that is the same as the number on the bottom. So for this fraction, since my denominator is 4, my whole fraction is 4/4. But I want to pull out as many whole fractions as I can from this 25/4. So I'm going to start with 4/4, but I can use more, so I'm going to do another 4/4. So that makes 4 plus 4 is 8. I'm trying to get up to 25, so I still have some more 4s I can pull. So I'm going to pull another 4. Now I'm up to 16. I'm getting closer, but I have room for another 4. That gets me 4, 8, 12, 16, and then I'm going to do one more. 20. Do I have enough to make one more whole fraction? I do, because I'm at 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, and I'm trying to get up to 25. So I have enough to do another 4/4. That gets me to 24. And then how many do I have left over that I need to add in? 1/4. Good job. So now it's a little messy because I wrote my numbers big, but to get 25 over 4, that means I'm adding 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 holes. So I'm going to put a big fat 6 there for 6 holes, and I have 1/4 left over. So it's 6 and 1/4. So that would be my mixed number. Now, the other way I could do this is by dividing. Let's say I had the fraction, let's do 17 over 6. If I wanted to convert this to a mixed number, I'm going to divide this time. So I'm going to do 17 divided by 6. The same as my fraction shows, 17 divided by 6. Now I'm just going to go through and do my long division. So I'm going to ask myself, can 6 go into 1? No, because 1 is smaller than 6, so I have to put a big fat 0 there. Now I'm going to multiply. 6 times 0 gives me 0. I subtract to bring down my 1, and then I bring down my 7 to meet it. Now I'm trying to see how many times 6 go into 17. So I'm going to ask myself, 6 times what mystery number gets me closest to 17 without going too high, too far over? So 6 times what number should I be choosing? Who can tell me? All right, good answer. It's going to be 6 times 2. Because what would it have been if we had done 6 times 3? 18. 18 is too big. It's bigger than 17. So the biggest I can do is 6 times 2. So I'm going to do 6 times 2. That gives me 12. I subtract it. I get a remainder of 5. So I bring this up to the top, and I end up with 2 remainder 5. But wait, that's not a fraction. We need to make sure our number is in a fraction form at the end. So I need to put this into my mixed number fraction form. So if my quotient is 2, that means I have 2 wholes, and my remainder is 5. So I have 5 as my numerator. Then the denominator, I always keep the same. So this denominator of 6 is going to stay a denominator of 6. So my 2 remainder 5 turns into 2 wholes with 5 over 6 left over. So that will be my mixed number. Are we feeling pretty good about converting to mixed numbers? Show me thumbs. Good. All right, so now let's try converting our improper fractions. So if we're converting improper fractions and mixed numbers, we're going to start with a mixed number. Let's say we start with 4 and 2/4. And I want to turn this into an improper fraction. So I am going to use my around the world trick. So I'm going to first start by doing 4 times 4. 4 times 4 gives me 16. And then I take that 16 and I add my numerator to it. So I'm going to add 2 more to it. 16 plus 2 gives me 18 over my denominator of 4 stays a denominator of 4. So my improper fraction for 4 and 2/4 is 18 over 4. Now the last way I could do mixed numbers to improper fractions is to decompose. So if I had a fraction like 3 and 2/6, decomposing would mean that I first have to start with my whole fractions. How many whole fractions do I have for this one? 3. Good, because this big number here tells me how many whole fractions I have. But my whole fraction denominator needs to be 6. Good. So I need 3 whole fractions with a denominator of 6. So that means I need 6 over 6, 6 over 6, and 6 over 6. So there's my 3 wholes. Now I just need to add up what's left over, which is my 2/6. So I add in 2/6. Now I'm going to add that all together to get my final improper fraction. So 6 plus 6 is 12, plus 6 more is 18, plus 2 more is 20, and my denominator of 6, it stays the same. So my improper fraction is 20 over 6. How are we feeling? Are we feeling okay?
Yes.
Thumbs?
Yeah.
Good. All right, so now we're going to move on to our next topic, which is adding and subtracting our mixed numbers and our improper fractions. So when we're adding and subtracting our mixed numbers and our improper fractions, we want to look out for some major keys. So first, let's look at an example. So let's say that I had 3 2/5 plus 1 2/5. Well, like we learned last week, when I'm adding my mixed numbers, I'm going to add them one piece at a time. So first I'm going to add my wholes. That's 3 plus 1. That gives me 4. And then I add my fractions. 2/5 plus 2/5 gives me 4/5. So then I combine these two, 4 and 4/5, and my mixed number answer is 4 and 4/5. So now I've converted it by adding my mixed numbers. Now let's try subtracting. Same thing. If I'm subtracting 4 and 7 over 8 minus 2 and 2 over 8, I'm going to start by subtracting my whole numbers. So 4 minus 2, 4 minus 2, that's going to give me 2. And then I subtract my fractions. 7 over 8 minus 2 over 8. 7, 8 minus 2 over 8 gives me 5 over 8. And then I combine to get a final answer of 2 and 5/8. So you'll notice when I'm subtracting, it's the same way I add them. I'd start with the wholes, and then I add the fractions. Or I start with the wholes, and I subtract the fractions. Either way, I get the correct answer. Now let's try something a little bit harder. Let's pretend we wanted to subtract fractions. For example, let's say where our whole numbers, let's change it. Let's add our fractions, and let's add fractions where our whole numbers end up adding together and our fractions end up adding together to make more whole numbers. Let me show you what I mean. So let's say I had 3 and 2 over 6 plus 4 and 4 over 6. Well, first I'm going to add my whole numbers. So I'm going to add 3 plus 4. And that's going to combine to give me 7. And then I'm going to add my fractions. 2/6 plus 4/6 gives me 6 over 6. But wait, what is 6 over 6? 1 whole. So now, since I realize that that makes me a whole fraction, I'm going to just add 7 plus 1, because my 6 over 6 that I got once I added these two fractions make up 1 whole. So then I'm going to do 7 plus 1, and my answer would be 8. So what I have done is I added my wholes. Then when it came time to add my fractions, I realized they added up to give me another whole fraction. So I turn that into a 1, add that to my whole number, 7, and I get a total of 8. Let's try another one. Let's say we are doing 3 and 2/8 plus 1 and 7/8. So here, we're adding our fractions the same way we've been doing. First, I'm going to add my whole numbers. 3 plus 1, that's going to give me 4. Then I'm going to add my fractions. 2 over 8 plus 7 over 8 That's going to give me 9 over 8. But wait, is 9 over 8 an improper fraction? It is. That means I can make one whole out of this. So I want to remove the one whole to see how many I have left over. So I know 8 can go into 9 one time to create a fraction of 8 over 8. And then what I will have left over is 1/8. Does everyone understand how I changed 9 over 8 into 1 and 1/8 just by converting it to a mixed number? Good. So now I'm going to add my two individual answers. So I'm going to do 4 plus 1 and 1/8. And so my final answer is going to be 5 and 1/8. 5 and 1/8. Does everyone understand that so far? Good. So if you end up with an improper fraction once you have added your individual fractions, then please convert it to a mixed number so you know how many wholes you have and how many leftover fractions you're working with. So let's do one more example of that before I give you another one. Aniela, can you go grab a piece of white paper from the back there for me? Thank you. So I'm going to start with, let's do 4 and 2 over 8 plus 3 and 7 over 8. Oh, we just did one like that. Let's change it up a little bit. All right, so let's try a different one. Thank you. So instead of that, let's do 4 and 2/5 plus 2 and 4/5. So now for this one, I'm going to add my whole numbers. So 4 plus 2, that gives me 6. And then I'm going to add my fractions. So to add my fractions, I am going to add 2 over 5 plus 4 over 5. That gives me a total of 6 over 5. But wait, is this an improper fraction? It is. So I can convert it into a mixed number. So I'm going to ask myself, 5 can go into 6 one time, and that leaves me 1/5 left over. So my mixed number for this improper fraction is 1 and 1/5. So then I'm going to add the 6 wholes that I got from adding my whole numbers over here to my fractions that I added up and converted into a mixed number. So 6 plus 1 and 1/5. So that final answer is going to be 7 and 1/5. All right, let's try one more thing before you go ahead and do it on your own. The last thing you might see is subtraction with fractions that aren't big enough to be subtracting. So for example, let's say I had to subtract 6 and 1/4 minus 4 and 2/4. Well, I know I could do 6 minus 4. That's going to give me 2. But then when I go to do 1/4 minus 2/4, I have to do 1 minus 2. Can I do 1 minus 2? No. So I have to do it a different way. So instead of doing it this way, our normal way, I'm first going to convert it into improper fractions. So I'm going to turn this number, 6 and 1/4, into an improper fraction using around the world. So I'm going to first multiply. 6 times 4 is 24, plus 1 is 25, and I keep my denominator of 4. Then I'm going to do the same to my other fraction. And I'm going to do around the world. 4 times 4 is 16, plus 2 more is 18. All over the same denominator. I keep my subtraction sign. So now, instead of trying to subtract these difficult mixed numbers, I can subtract 25 over 4 minus 18 over 4. It's a little easier. So I'm going to count 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. That gives me 7 over 4. But should I leave my answer like this? No, I want to turn it into a mixed number. So I get an answer of 7 over 4, but then I'm going to convert that into a mixed number. 4 can go into 7 one time with 3 left over. 4, 5, 6, 7. 3 left over. So that 3 left over goes into the top, and the 4 stays my denominator. So my final answer is 1 3/4. I hope that made a little bit of sense. You have a worksheet to work on, so please try and complete that as best you can. If you need to rewatch the video, ask the sub to replay it for you. Do your best, and I look forward to seeing your work when I collect it tomorrow. Thanks so much. Bye.